So I've compared Copic markers to a lot of cheaper off brands, but I thought, you know what? Why not compare to another name brand that you may have heard of, Prismacolor. So how do Prismacolor stack up to Copics? Let's find out. Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome, mad creators, to the underground laboratory where we create robots, aliens, zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. And oftentimes we also do marker reviews. Done a few of those. I'm doing another one today. And this one is going to be, well, I got these Prismacolor Premier markers, and they are alcohol-based markers, which is typically what I like to do comparisons of. And as always, I'm going to compare them to Copics because they are the industry standard. Now these are a bit cheaper than Copics. Copics usually, if you break them down a piece, now I always get emails, oh, I got some for $5, I got some for $4, or some crazy thing, but those deals are kind of hard to find. Usually they come out to around $7 a pop for a Copic marker, and maybe that breaks down if you buy full sets and things like that. These, I think I got this whole set of 12. Now this is a smaller set, but I think it was around 20 bucks. I will leave an affiliate link so you can get either Copic markers or these if you'd like. There are plenty of different sets of these, but I wanted to try these out because they look, the tips. Now the tip is always a big thing because, as you know, and we'll get a little deeper into that, but as you know, the main thing, well, they all have the chisel tip, all right? No one likes the chisel tip. The chisel tip can be cool stuff, especially if you're doing like calligraphy or something like that, but everyone loves the brush tip. And these do not have a brush tip, but they have a different kind of chisel tip that looks like another marker that's probably my favorite marker in the world, and I'll show you what that is in a minute. But anyway, I found this this set. Now it's a smaller set, but I think I can do some cool illustrations with it because, as you know, I do comic book work quite a bit. And these are specifically designed for manga artists, which is really just comic books, you know. So a lot of the colors I think are pretty cool, the ones they give you. So we'll do a little review on this and we'll see how they stack up to the Copic markers. Let's take a look. Okay, so here are the Prismacolor Premier markers. There's two different styles. The one I have has sort of a chisel tip. We'll get into that in a minute. And I also picked up some loose markers. Michaels had I got a coupon from Michaels where it was like 50% off any Prismacolor product. So I did get some of the brush tips too, so I can leave that up to you. Normally I would definitely recommend the brush tips, but I want to try out these chisel because they're a little different. Well, let's open this up first. We'll see what comes in this little pack of 12 manga color, or manga, however you want to pronounce it, color markers. So it looks like a pretty good color selection here. You know, the box is just a box. Nothing. It doesn't have a really, you know, awesome carrying case or anything like that. But that's the case with a lot of these markers. So I don't know if I've ever used Prismacolor markers before. I've used a lot of markers, which is weird. I've just got so many random. Just a random assortment of markers, but I don't think I've ever used Prismacolor. I thought, well, maybe I have, now that I think of it. The style has definitely changed a little bit. So speaking of the style, we'll kind of take a look at the marker itself. So you've got this broad band here, and then the thinner band, and that's going to let you know whether you've got your bullet nib, or in this case, the chisel nib. Some of them, I'll show you one of the other ones here. Now this one didn't come in the pack, but I will show you this here. So here's one. You can see this one has sort of a broader, but it's kind of a wavy line. That's going to indicate that you've got a brush tip. So, and I thought I was, the new ones that I got, the loose ones, I thought I was getting all brush tips, but I wasn't really paying close attention. So you got to do that when you're buying them. The other thing to know is when they do have the brush tip, I don't know if we can focus on that, you can see it's also kind of got that tapered line on there, which is also going to indicate a brush tip, and the ones with the chisel nib don't. And I guess they have them on both sides, even though the bullet on the brush nib isn't like tapered or anything, but you got that tapered line and everything. So that's the difference. That's how you know which one is the brush and which is the chisel tip. So just showing you that. Let's see. And so they're round, and usually with round markers it's like, oh, they're gonna roll off the table, which isn't a good thing. But they do have this little notch here on the tip that helps it from rolling, so that's definitely a plus. And we're gonna see if the caps pop on. If they, yeah, so the caps fit on the back, another definite plus.
So far as the design of these markers, yeah, it's a nice design. So yeah, it's nice that they're kind of in black. You know, most of the a lot of the Copics or the Copic knockoffs are in white, so something a little different for what it's worth. I don't know if that's a big selling point, but yeah, it's kind of cool. So yeah, those are the, I don't know, as far as design wise, I don't know if there's anything else to talk about. So I do want to talk about this nib, and the reason why in this particular case, which isn't normal for me, I mean, I always go usually like the brush nib, but the reason why I wanted to try out this chisel tip, if you can look at the design of that there, okay, it's a little different, and it reminded me of like my favorite marker of all time, and I've got some old ones here. These are the Chart Pack ad markers. Now these are ancient. I've had these forever. Like these are the only ones I have left. I used to have tons of them. But let me see here. So I'm going to show you this nib because as you can see, it's very similar to the one on the Prismacolors. So, and what makes this really cool, even though it looks like a chisel tip, which it is, it acts also like a brush tip. See, these ones most markers have like the two tips. This only has one. Now the cool thing about this is I didn't know they still made these markers. Like I said, these are my all-time favorite markers. They're not alcohol based, they're xylene based, which is, they have a little bit of an odor to them. So for that reason, a lot of people don't like them, but they mix really well. And I didn't know that they made these anymore. And I just saw a YouTube video with somebody reviewing these. So evidently they do make them. So I'm gonna have to get a set of those and kind of show those off in another video. So yeah, the video said new style of marker, new kind of marker, which wasn't necessarily true because I've been using these since like the early 90s. So like I said, these are old, but they're awesome, and I wish I had more. So I definitely want to get some, and because it's a totally different kind of marker. Like I said, it's not alcohol based, but they will mix with alcohol. But this isn't a review for this product, but I just want to kind of show you what I'm talking about here, just to give you an idea, and then we're going to see if the Prismacolors have the same brush. So they look very similar, so hopefully they do. So I'm just gonna, you can kind of see. Now the thing about this chisel nib, most chisel nibs are like super like hard, like they're just tough. These are very soft like a brush nib. So I mean, I can get like thick and thin. I mean, that's basically what you get with a brush nib. There's really no difference with this chisel nib and a brush nib. You can see that. So that's why I was excited. And they're just going so smooth, and they're thicker, and they hold a lot of ink. So these are great markers, and I'm glad to know that they still make them. So I definitely want to do that on a future video. So based on that, now I want to try out the Prismacolor and see if their chisel nibs are similar, because they look very similar. All right, let's see. So I mean, in a way, yes, they're not as hard as like the Copic chisel nibs or most other chisel nibs. It's a little softer, but it's definitely not like this. And that maybe it could be with this kind of ink. Maybe you can't get as soft of a nib with alcohol or something for some reason. I don't know. So they're, I mean, you can't. It's close. It's not quite as good, but these are definitely for me a lot better than what you normally get with, like, well, since we're doing a Copic comparison. Let's show you the Copic chisel nib. So there's and I'm sure that these do have pluses, especially if you're doing calligraphy or something. But they also have the brush nib, so you get kind of the best. But you can't. I mean, I guess with these you can sort of taper, but it's not. It's just not it's not the same, and they're a lot harder and everything. So. I'm not. I mean, I will use this chisel nib for like broad strokes and certain things like that, but I usually go with the brush for that. So yeah. So now let's try just a quick test. We're gonna pull out one of the brush tips for the. Oh no, that's wrong side. See, I mentioned which side, so you know which side they are, and I forgot to pay attention to that. So. All right, so this is the brush nib version of the Prismacolor, and yeah, performs very similar to a Copic brush nib. So yeah, cool. And it feels nice and juicy and everything, which it should. And what else can I talk about as far as, so the one thing well, maybe I'm wrong here. Okay, so I was gonna say the thing I didn't like about these is that they don't have a name, they have a numbering system. Like, so Copics have the, you know, they've got like this one's Spectrum Green, and then it's G02, so they got the numbering system and the color. So I looked at these on the top, and they just got the number, and which definitely is good when you're trying to figure out kind of the order, and if you can kind of figure out how these numbering system will work. But it's like, it's always good to explain to people, oh, just pick up the, you know, the Spectrum Green or whatever like that. It's a little easier to remember than the numbers. So I didn't see a name on there, so I didn't think they had them. But then I just noticed here, Brick Beige. So yeah, the name of the marker and the numbers are both on here. They're just in different places. So that's good to know. All right. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to test these things out. And we're going to do a side-by-side comparison with the Copic markers. So let's start that. Okay, so if you watched any of my marker comparison videos before, you know I make photocopies of an illustration, and then so right now on the left side, that's going to be the Prismacolor. On the right side is going to be the Copic markers. And I try to match the colors as closely as possible. And I just kind of go back and forth so you can see, you know, like a real-time, well, sort of real-time. I mean, this is sped up, but what I meant is side by side, you get to see what they look like. Now, that blue isn't exactly the same. Like I said, I try to get as close as I can. Now, with this illustration, I pick one that's a little bit not as detailed as a lot of the ones I do as far as the character design, because I don't have a lot of the Prismacolor marker. So I'm trying to find something that I can use with the limited amount of colors that I have. So you may not be able to get as much of an indication because I'm not using that many colors in this particular illustration, but I think the point will come across, as you can kind of see as I go side by side. So I did want to mention first, when I said the price of the Prismacolor in the intro were around $2 or a little over $2, that wasn't exactly correct, because when I did go to Michael's to get some extra ones, they were quite a bit more expensive, getting close to that Copic marker range. And the reason why I originally made that $2 assumption was because when I bought my pack, it was a pack of 12 for like $24. So I think if you buy them in packs, you can save a lot of money. The other thing is, don't pay full price for those markers, because if you live in a place where there's a Michael's, or I'm sure there's a similar art store wherever you guys live that offers coupons. I found a coupon for 50% off any Prismacolor product. So I went and it wasn't just like one product, it was, you know, whatever Prismacolor products you're buying. So that did save a lot of money. So that did bring it down. But otherwise it was like around, I want to say it was like around $7. So about half of that, I think. Prismacolors at their highest are around $8. And you can usually find them a little cheaper. So definitely shop around, but all in all, Prismacolors are cheaper. So I want to go and talk about the pros and cons of these markers. And I'm usually going to talk about the Prismacolor, because I'll mention a little bit about Copics in comparison, but we're kind of focusing on the Prismacolor because everything, like I said, is I'm comparing it to Copics because they're like, you know, pretty much what everyone considers the best marker you can get. So just keep that in mind. So both markers do come in individual colors and in pack, which are good. Some of the cheaper ones, like the Yahoo-Hoos and things, you got to buy a whole set. So you can't buy individual markers. So that is definitely a plus. I like the fact, again, that there is the color and the numbering system. Like I mentioned, it's a little, at first you don't really see the color on the Prismacolors, but they are there. One of the pros with the Prismacolors, like I mentioned, is that they do come in different kinds. There's the brush and the chisel tip. Just watch out, make sure you're getting the one you want. And then I think they also have multi-liners in different colors. So that's sort of a plus too. Another pro is they're cheaper than Copics, like I mentioned, depending on, you know, if you use coupons and things like that. They hold a little more ink. The barrel's a little larger on the Prismacolor, so they hold some more ink with the Copics. There is a downside, and I'll get to that in a minute when I start getting into the cons. Another pro is that they're not hard to find. Like I said, Michael's, I don't know if Hobby Lobby carries them or whatever art store you have near you. They do not roll unless you pull the caps off. The caps have that little thing that sticks out so they won't roll. I can't imagine you ever having both caps off. But if you have the caps on, at least one, they will not roll. They do have sort of an overlapping line, which can be a plus or a minus depending on what you want. Sometimes I want that overlapping line because I can go over it and darken the color with just one marker, but sometimes you don't want that. So they don't have, I mean, the Copics don't have that as much as an overlapping line. So let's get into some of the cons on these markets. One thing I found that the caps are kind of hard to get off. They're really tough. Like you kind of have to pry them, and maybe with time they'll loosen up a little bit. But that's kind of a pain when you're going from marker to marker, and they're hard to get off. So just keep that in mind. There's a little more of an odor. It's not too bad, but if you're super sensitive to that, it may be an issue with the Prismacolor markers. There are less markers. I forgot how many Copics, but I know they have tons. They have about 200 different colors in both the brush and the chisel tip. So a few less color options, or a lot less color options than the Prismacolor. They are not refillable, so that is a definite drawback. Copics are refillable, Prismacolors are not, and also you can't change the nibs out. So if you wanted to replace your chisel nibs with brush nibs or whatever, you cannot do that with the. I mean, there's probably a hack for that, but you know, legitimately you can't do that. So they have a bit of a smaller brush nib, the Prismacolors. So because of that, those nibs may dry out a little faster than the Copic brush nibs. But like I said, the chisel nibs on the Prismacolor are they're not like your standard chisel tip. If you're going to compare the chisel nib, excuse me, on the Prismacolor to the Copics, I would definitely say that Prismacolor has a much better chisel nib. You can almost use it like a brush nib, like I said before. Another drawback is that the Prismacolors have sort of a sticker. All right, so that can get worn down or fall off, and then you might lose the name of the marker or whatever. So over time, that could be an issue. But all in all, I think Prismacolors are, if you get the discount and everything, they are a great buy. And I'll go ahead and say what I always say. I am not a particular fanboy of any marker. I will use any markers at my disposal for my illustrations. I mix and match all the time, and I would recommend that you probably do the same. So if you got a few Prismacolors, a few Copic markers, a few Artist Loft, whatever you got, just try them all out. So and mix and match them. They're all alcohol based, so they're very compatible. And yeah, so that's sort of the review.
Okay, so let me show you the finished results. Here we go. So let's allow this to focus. This right here on the left is going to be your Prismacolor, and this is your Copics. So you can see pretty close to the same results, as close as I can match as far as color-wise, but the end results are, and that's kind of the case with most of these markers. I think it's more, the difference is in working with the tools, not necessarily the finished products. And sometimes you can get a cheaper product that doesn't look as good when you're done. But a lot of people do notice a difference, I guess, when I show these up. Some are more vibrant, some are not. But that could also just be because I wasn't able to match them as closely as possible based on the markers that I had at hand. But anyway, you can see the end results are going to be pretty close. So yeah, so I will leave that up to you guys. Do you like the Prismacolor? Do you like the Copic markers? Let me know in the comments section, and so hopefully that gives you a better idea of what to get when you're going out and pricing out and purchasing markers and everything. So yeah, also let me know if there are any other markers you want me to review, and maybe I will look into that. But other than that, I will see you guys later. That is all. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me here in the Art Lab. There's a lot of other great content on the channel, so click that subscribe button and you won't miss a thing. If you're an aspiring evil genius, visit Serkworks.com for all your mad science supply needs. And if you want to contact me, hit me up in the comments section or follow me on social media. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you then.